Hello, everyone. Waiting for Andrea Clark. Yeah, here she is. We'll invite her. See if that works. Just getting set up here. We'll be starting in a few minutes. All right. I don't see your video, but I see you're connected.
Uh-oh, I'm trying to get in here. Oh no, here. How's that?
Now I can see you. There you go.
Yay. I am having a lot of
So
help right here.
I did it this way. I invited you as a guest so that we'll have just one chat below us.
That's
Um,
good.
because the other way I could have done it, I could have had you co-host. And what that actually entails, you would have to go live, I go live, and then we kind of I invite you to merge the lives. But then we
Okay.
each have our own chats.
Yeah,
And
that
so
would
we
be
both
kind
have to watch them.
of. I like this better. Thank you for doing it this way. Yeah, thank you for setting this up. This is exciting.
Oh, no problem. So what I'm going to do real quick here is just do a little spiel. So they'll have a place where I cut the video. So when I post it, not
Okay,
formal at all, but that just gives me something to look for.
gotcha.
So I'll do that real quick.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Sci-Fi and Fantasy Live Chat with Friends. Today, I'm here with Andrea Clark, a guest. We'll be talking about our books. We'll be talking about all types of things, what we're working on, maybe our progress on some things. And of course, we'll be taking questions from any of our viewers. So we'll try to keep up with the chat as it's going, but forgive us if we're in a deep conversation, we might miss something and have to catch up on it a little bit. But welcome everyone, and we're starting now. All right,
Yay.
now we don't have to be formal at all.
Okay.
So
Yeah, you can cut and paste as needed, I guess.
I
Give me a
I
second.
will do something real quick myself, and then I'll ask you to do the same. Um, I'll just talk about my first book that's actually out. Maybe I could change the. Oh, no, I don't know where it is, so I'm not going to. So the After. This is my book that's currently published. A sci-fi space fantasy that's about alternate afterlife in an alternate universe where things are pretty utopic and great until there's a cultish religious organization that likes to change things. Um, so this is out now. The cover doesn't even matter if you could read it too much here because this cover is only going to be live for another day or two. I'm changing the cover and putting a new release out in a couple days. I'll
Cool.
ask you to go ahead and do the same with one of your books, if you have one to hold up. If not, just talk about it.
I do. I have the Waves of Dissonance.
Ooh,
It's
little higher.
what's that? How's
Great
this?
cover.
Says The Waves of Dissonance. This is the second cover. I had another one, and this one went more professional. I did the other one myself, which, yeah, big mistake. Live and learn. And it's a dystopian sci-fi in the future where two different societies are using mind control to sway the masses. And at the time of the story it takes place in 3 days. And day one is there's an election to with both of these groups to try to merge, and a lot of bad things happen. And their children are 18 and they try to cross the border to meet each other, and yeah, mind control never goes well.
Nice. Sounds interesting. What's
Yeah.
interesting with you is I'm going the actual other direction. This first cover, I actually love this cover, but it's very hard sci-fi-ish. And so when I first started, I didn't realize it was so hard sci-fi-ish. I was just enamored to get published and have this great cover. Um, I actually designed one myself now that I feel reflects the book a little better. And then I asked a whole bunch of author friends what they thought. And when I put the two of them together, overwhelmingly what I designed seems more professional. I thought this was professional, but seems more professional and more fit for my book. So I'm going to do
Can
it
you
for my
show it
first three
now?
books. No. um, I don't have anything printed out, and I don't have any of the files on my computer. I was just today going through because I designed the cover itself weeks ago, but then I went and put together the full cover today. So I've been working on it all day, but
Nice.
no, I can't show anything at the moment.
There's a lot to it. I remember when I was doing mine, I actually have, if I can get over top of this guy who's helping me. The old cover was this. And to me, it has brain waves going through, and there's a red river in between the two countries. I liked it, but
It's very sci-fi. It seems fitting, but the other one is much more eye-catching.
haha, I saw what you did there.
I
Thank you.
can't really show. I don't know if this is going to show up. No, those bookmarks don't.
Mhm.
I had designed a second book, and I did the cover myself as a placeholder, and people loved it so much. I put it onto a bookmark, but not the best quality bookmarks. But I used that as my basis for the first book as I redesigned it. So,
So is this your first book to be published?
first book published is The After, yes. Well, first fictional book. I've had other works. I contributed on a bunch of tech books for a variety of things throughout my career. I've been in software engineering for 27 plus years and contributed on a bunch of books like that.
Nice. Nice. This is my first book too. So,
Good.
a lot
Congratulations.
of lessons learned. Thank you.
It is so different than what I did before. The
I bet.
process when you're an indie author, because it was actually a group of us that was working with a publishing house. We did so little compared to what you do as an indie author. It was the difference is huge.
Well, was it just your silo did less, or the whole group did less, you think?
The whole group did less. We all
Wow.
took sections of larger books, and we wrote them and then peer reviewed them, and then just kind of passed them around for a bit. We didn't do any formatting. We didn't do any editing, not even like the basic editing. We wrote and gave it away, and someone else edited it. And
Oh, wow.
then we got it back. It looked amazing, and we'd peer review it to make sure it still made sense. Then all the artwork that was put in it was done for us. We would give like quotes and stuff to them, and they do all the formatting in the book to get it in the right places, even like code snippets. We were, handled with very kid gloves. Um, but we didn't make any. Well, we made money, but very, very little money because it was split so many ways.
That's a great experience, though.
It was more fun, I think, than anything. It was like a networking experience with some people, and then just getting to do something beyond what you normally work on.
Yeah. Nice. Do you keep in touch with them now, or do you, so you don't do that job anymore, or do you?
Right now, I'm out of work, but I've moved up into the VP level. So I do keep in touch with some of the people, but a lot of them have stayed within the development levels, and so we don't communicate as much as we used to.
That's pretty cool because, yeah, in my next book that I'm writing, it's going to be not so much a software developer, but the person who's developing the mind control for this book. They're actually going to be developing it in the first book. So I might have to contact you and get some reality checks
I
going.
haven't I haven't designed mind control, but I'd happily help you out there.
Or if you had, you wouldn't be able to tell me, right? Or I would just know.
Well, I just know you're going to ask at least.
Right.
So, what is the current project you're working on?
It is the prequel technically, but they're both kind of standalone books because this one takes place 36 years after the 2020 plague, just so happens. And the one I'm working on now will take place in 2019. So it'll be right before the plague started, and her developing the ad race and who's trying to keep her from doing that. So it's I'm having a
That's
ball
cool.
writing it. It's so fun.
I
And a
really
lot
look
of
forward to seeing the books like that, like 20 years from now.
yes.
After we've forgotten about the pandemic and now a book that's written around the pandemic and we all remember, oh my God, it was such a mess.
Yeah. Well, this book, the Waves of Dissonance, I wrote back in the 1990s. That's the really weird thing. I wrote it in the 90s. Um, I tried to have it published in about 2014, and in that version, well, it was a little. I didn't get it published, and so then by the time I finally did get it published, I just self-published in 2020 when the real plague of 2020 came out. And I was actually looking through my notes, my manuscript, and I was going to do yet another edit because I'd been editing it since the 1990s. And all of a sudden, I told my husband, "Look at this manuscript! Look, I wrote the plague of 2020, and look I need to publish today." That's when I threw the cover together. I was like, I got to get this out there right now. And then other things have happened since the 1990s. It's just kind of weird.
There's been a couple of people I know that have picked the 2020s as a big target event, and no one knew. It just was I don't know, it just like that. The 2020 by itself got people to target it.
For some reason, it's weird. I didn't even remember having picked that date. It didn't mean that much to me, but apparently it did. And then
And
my book takes place 36 years after that. So
yeah,
it doesn't even really deal with the plague. It's just sort of, oh, this explains why I'm going to have a dystopian in the future.
that's cool. I actually was writing I started doing a Kindle Vella.
Oh,
I
yeah.
stopped doing it because none of my fans liked it. Not they liked my story, they just didn't like Kindle Vella. Um,
Yeah.
so I stopped doing it. But it was actually it was 20 years after the plague, or not the plague, but 20 years after the pandemic,
Uh-huh.
and that led into a total zombie apocalypse. So it was a post a zombie apocalypse novel. Not like The Walking Dead, though, more gritty, I think would be a good way to call it. And
Yeah.
I only put out 3 or 4 episodes before my fans I was talking to just asked me to make a book out of it. So pulled that back. I'm going to make a book out of it, but I'm not really. It's not on my current writing schedule. So I've got that sitting back, but I've done the same thing. I'm using that as a baseline event to explain how we get to something else. You kind of have to when you have something that big in your life that marks it like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, my early version, I had a nuclear holocaust that happened. So everybody since has been thanking me, like, I'm so glad you just picked a plague. If the things in your novel are coming true, plague is we'll take it.
We could never believe anything before. Now we'll believe a plague.
Right, right. And Bella, you were talking about Bella. So I thought about trying that, but then you have to really edit as you go along. And I'm better at just getting the whole story, the skeleton down, and that's what I'm working on now. And then go back and I might have to change things that happened in the beginning to fit with what the characters turn out to do later. And Bella seemed to me to be too redundant because I would have to really get chapter one good before I published it for the readers to see, and it might not stay that way. So I haven't done Vela yet.
So I had
Uh,
thought that it might be a really good experiment to have engagement from readers. Like
yeah.
if you could write an episode and then ask a few questions like, what would you like to see happen with character X? Or maybe you can ask, about the plot. Like what do they think? Where do they think it should go? I even thought about doing charity auction offs to go to different directions. And I thought if I can get audience engagement. That would be huge and fun. And not a single person replied. The, I got some reads on it, but none of them were engaging at all. So even from my newsletter where I asked for engagement and even did a secondary chain for engagement for them, nothing. People would read it and they just wouldn't respond. And most of them were wanting to consume the next bits. So one of the biggest
Right.
thing I got as feedback was people are using Kindle Vella as a novel. So
Uh,
they want to read something. If they like the first chapters, they just want to keep buying them as they can and read
okay.
through them. And that just totally threw my idea out the window, right? I wanted interactive,
Right. And
and
I thought that's how it was billed. Vela was billed that way.
they build
Everything
it
I'd
that way, but they
heard.
never even made it nice that way. So you can't even comment directly on a single story.
Oh,
Um, you comment on the whole series, and they've been given likes and dislikes, but that's really not the same as an engagement model.
yeah.
and
Yeah.
and that's what I thought too. So I figured I'd just go in there, put in a episode, people could talk about the episode. Not
Mhm.
true. So then I pointed them to like a Facebook group, and I had just a specific group in there. I put questions up. I'd deal on my release day, letting people know, and engagement was not worth it. Not for what I wanted to do.
Yeah, because since you want feedback, because otherwise I just thought, well, you could do like Stephen King did and issue just episode 1 through whatever 20 and just
Mm-hmm.
but then you still wouldn't get feedback. You might issue that novella as a chapter, but it still wouldn't go do what you're talking about. You wouldn't get the feedback from it
You,
and be
you
able to
wouldn't,
change it.
and you'd tell it, you call it a whole season maybe, and you get feedback on the season, but
Yeah,
you wouldn't really get it per the episode. Now, maybe if I had a following like Stephen King, it might have worked, right? Because the bigger a following you get, of course, you're going to be able to get some people to engage. Um,
right. Well, he didn't even do it that way though, right? He just issued it as that was the Green Mile I'm thinking of when it came out. I think that was the one he did as an episode, and I refused to read each one because I knew it would just kill me. I had to read the whole thing.
I'm not a huge fan of Stephen King. I think he lost me with two books. Uh, the first was Christine. The second was Pet Cemetery.
So I don't like any horror. I'm just really a wimp. I don't like horror books, horror movies, anything. So I've never read either one of those two of his. Pet Cemetery, I've never read. I did read The Shining and It, and that was enough. The rest of them I like of his are things like The Green Mile, Running Man, um, Misery, those kind of things that
I
are just weird, but not
It wasn't because it
horror.
was horror as much because his style doesn't appeal to me. Um, and it does to some people. But for example, it felt like to me on Pet Cemetery that there was about 4 or 5 chapters of them walking down a path in the woods before they bury the cat. And that's way too,
Five
like, I like to give,
chapters.
might be, my memory might be expanding that a bit, but it was very
That's a long
detailed.
time. Yeah.
So one of the things I like to do when I write is give the readers the courtesy of believing they can imagine things. So give them enough information to imagine a forest and a path, not to describe every leaf. And
That's a good
that's
point.
kind of
He does get into the weeds. Kind
yeah,
of like
I
me.
find very much so, and even below the weeds a little.
Yeah. It's funny when I write, I tend to be not very descriptive when I do my first and apparently 10th drafts. So I don't know if it's your experience, but when I would get to my final good drafts that I thought they were good, I had to actually add not chapters, but add big paragraphs of description. Like everywhere I went, I was like, okay, is this described well enough? Because I just don't tend to do that naturally. And that's where the draft that I'm doing now for the new book, it's such a skeleton outline. I mean, I'm embarrassed. Nobody can ever read it yet at all.
I'm different on that. I tend to work on a chapter at a time and try to flush it out, and then I move forward because I really have most of the stories I write in my head before I start writing. And so I've got a lot of detail. I've thought out the situations. It's just now trying to translate what's in my head to the paper, and doing that in a way that I really try to control myself from doing too much. So I could put way too much detail. I could write like that if I wanted to, but I
Mhm.
really don't because I don't like reading that. So I hold myself back a bit.
Yeah, I'm not holding myself back. I just don't do it until I make myself. And so do you start off with an outline then?
I have a story outline in my head, but I do not plot it out. At most, what I'll do, oops, sorry. At most, what I'll do is name chapters a few in ahead. And even when I do that, a lot of times I'll add or take away chapters. It's just as I'm writing, but it just gives me a small target. So I just, name a chapter. I have an idea of what that's behind it. I don't even take notes on it. I just get into the writing the chapter before it. And when I get to that point, I remember what I was thinking about, and I change my mind a lot. Or I just, try to flush it out and keep going. I'll generally write 1 to 3 chapters at a time, and then even go back and do my first round of editing because I dislike doing large wholesale editing. I do it in that a bit at a time. I even find sometimes I write in for a writing aid because I currently use Scrivener, and you can open Scrivener in Pro Writing Aid. So a lot of times I'll just set up my outline and set up a few chapters ahead, like what I said, and then just open that file in for a writing aid and first write it, then go back and use the tools to edit it.
Oh, well, I haven't used Scrivener yet. I've heard about it, but mine's all in Word, and I should branch out a little bit. I have a
It's
whole,
don't go from Word to Scrivener at this point.
yeah,
It's got a lot of power and could do a lot of things, but it takes a lot of work to get there.
okay,
I'm hoping some newer tools like Atticus, as it matures, would be a better way to go in the future.
okay. Haven't heard of
Um,
Atticus.
you haven't heard of that one?
No, I'll have to write
Do you
that one down.
know Kindlepreneur? The person that puts together, it's called KDP Rocket.
No, not Rocket. Nope. Nope.
Okay, so or KDP, it has another name too, but KDP Rocket is a tool that allows you to see rankings of different books within certain genres. So you can look
Oh,
at sci-fi and find the top rated books in sci-fi, find the
okay.
top rated keywords so that when you build your keywords for KDP, you could use that to help
I needed that.
get your higher list. It's a really cool tool. But that group, the gentleman, Kindlepreneur, he actually writes a lot of blogs about writing and doing different stuff. But one of the other tools he's working on is Atticus, which is a writing and formatting tool. And
Cool.
it looks like it's going to be a good contender. I've
Okay.
tried a couple others, like I've tried Dabble, Living Writer. Um, Even I got a free version of Creatively, which is almost more of a scam than anything else. But I've worked with a couple of these new tools coming up, and at this point, Atticus is the one I'm looking forward to as it matures.
Cool. I'll look for that too then. I totally hadn't heard of any of those. That's awesome.
I
Yeah.
do notice we have a couple of people who have been hanging around in the live. Anyone have any questions they want to ask, or have anything they are dying to tell us? If so, feel free to type it out in chat, and we'll we're watching it, and as if anything comes across, we'll address it as we can. Not see anything immediately. So, what are you working on next? What's the next item? I mean, you talked about the next book's going to be in 2019, but is that the only thing you're working on?
The one I'm anxious to figure out in my head is it's still along the same series, so to speak, but there's 3 societies, and I really only deal with 2 of them. The third society is sort of, they got things pretty much right, and so I've left them alone. But I want to have just a novella or something just to kind of address them and show what happens over there. And they're part of the rebellion, so some of them you meet some of them because they come over to help this side, but that's it. I haven't gone over there at all. So I'd like to do a little novella about that. Somebody suggested the other day a children's book about mind control and the cat. I thought that would be a hoot, but I'm not sure how to do that. So, but those are the only things right now in my head. What about you?
Yeah, I don't know about how you do mind control with a cat. I don't think I can get in a cat's headspace well enough.
The cat is controlling us. That's
and thinking about that might actually be true. But no, I'm working on I have a couple of things in progress. I have the second book in the series, which is called Destiny's Crow. Actually finished writing it months and months and months ago. But I'm not really investing in editing right now, so I'm holding off to get it edited. But since that one's basically ready for to go once I can get it edited, I went ahead and wrote a novella. I was trying for a novelette, but ended up writing too much. That is within the same universe, but not in the series. So the series is called The Afterverse, and so I just am calling this next one an Afterverse story.
okay.
So it lines up, and I've got that done. I've got the first round of my alpha reader. Went through it. I'm going to be looking for beta readers soon. I'm going to be releasing that as a reader magnet. I'll also put it for sale on Amazon, but primarily it's going to be what I put in reader magnet on my site, and when I do things like book funnel events and stuff like that.
Cool. Looks like you have a comment.
Oh, hey, yeah, and you've actually seen a copy of that cover, I believe. It's the one that I posted in my a video about a couple weeks ago, but it does not have the ship that was in the upper right-hand side. I took the ship out. But otherwise, yeah, you pretty much know what that is. It was a little difficult getting the back cover of that book to look good with that front cover because of how I did it. But I spent pretty much 5 hours today doing that. Well, we'll get you one. I'm not sure how long before I hit the publish on that. I was thinking about waiting until I get the hardcover ready too, but unfortunately, Amazon's speed with hardcover shipping is so slow. It would probably take me about 2.5 weeks before I can get a proof. So I'm kind of thinking about turning off the hardcover so I can get the rest of them out. And then I'm not sure if I can even do that, if I can remove my hardcover from print so I don't have 2 different covers out there. But I'll have to check into that.
Oh yeah, that's interesting. I haven't done a hardcover yet, so I guess you can always add it later. But since you published all 3 of them, you pushed them all out at the same time? Is that what you did?
When I first published them, I published the ebook and the paperback the same day, and then I just delayed the hardback by a couple of weeks. But now that it's already out there and I want to change them, because I don't want to release a hardback without getting a proof first. Yes. It takes so long to get a proof that it'll be a month before I can get that done. And so I don't know if you could turn off the hardcover once you've published it. I just haven't checked.
Yeah.
Because I really
good
don't want
question.
someone seeing the paperback with the new cover and then buying the hardback with the old cover.
The old
Because
cover.
that would be.
Well,
Oh,
then you
one
could
thing I meant to
it could be
mention for
vintage.
this. For anyone, well, we don't have a lot of listeners right now, but I am selling signed versions of the current book with this cover for $10.99 today from my website, and that includes free shipping. That's $4 cheaper than Amazon. But
Great.
a little promo for myself there, only because I have
Nice.
about 14 of them on the shelf behind me.
Well, that's vintage. You can hold on to them, and then as a release.
Yeah, I do a special release with the first book with its first cover.
Yes, yes.
I did a event locally here, and it rained out. They still held it, but we got like 2 people walking through. And so I
Oh,
bought like 20 books, and I had them all displayed there nicely, and managed to get them out of the rain. And
good.
we had more visitors.
So
I'm not sure that this location I'm at is really good for sci-fi books anyways, so I may not have sold any anyways, but that left
what
me
kind
with a
of
whole
venue
bunch of
was it?
It's a local used bookstore that does local authors, brings us in to sell them. And they have a pretty good audience, but even going through the bookstore, their section on sci-fi is very slim.
Oh,
But I thought I'd do it because it's in town,
absolutely. And if it
But it's
just hadn't
also
rained out, you would have had a lot. So maybe they'll do it again.
they will, but they've now done it twice, and both times they had storms, so they're not too confident on their on
They're going to
their
blame
luck.
you.
The first time they actually did it, they told half the authors they couldn't come because inside the building, fire code wouldn't let enough people to sit at tables.
Right.
So interesting.
So you were lucky to at least be there.
Yeah, I think I need to go. I'm in Indiana, Lafayette, near Purdue University.
Okay.
Indiana isn't a big sci-fi state. So I
Really?
think I need to go. Yeah, not so much. Not at least this area. Um,
Okay.
I I think I need to go to Chicago to really do some events up there.
Yeah, I would think that they have lots of Comic-Con and a lot of events up there. That would be fun. It would just be fun for
Yeah,
you to go.
Worldcon
Yeah.
was up there this year, but I just couldn't make it. I wish I could have. If you haven't heard of Worldcon, it's the biggest sci-fi con out there. So
Wow. And that's in Chicago?
it was this year. I don't know if it is every year.
Okay. Looks like there's some in Michigan.
Yeah, well, if you hear of one in Michigan, let me know. Michigan is not that bad of a trip. It's probably about 5 hours from here for most places in Michigan, or at least most of the southern places in Michigan. So I am starting another series here too soon because my
What's it?
universe is pretty expansive. I'm going to be starting a fantasy series based in the same universe that I will eventually cross over with the sci-fi series.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I'm doing a research right now. That's why I've got this little book here that I need to work through a little more.
What's that
The
called?
magic system blueprint book.
Cool.
So building a full magic system rather than stealing one.
Uh-huh. That's good.
So it actually even comes with like crazy forms and stuff you could fill out. This is like 16 pages for a single magical string. So I'm not sure how much I'm going to do of this. It's beginning to feel like plotting, and I might just wing it. I'm not sure.
So I was just ready to say that looks fascinating because I'm a plotter, so that sounds wonderful.
It's an interesting take on how to do magic systems. So if you do get into doing anything with magic systems, I would suggest this book. It's on Kindle Unlimited, so you
Okay.
can actually get a free copy of it if you use Kindle Unlimited. But I liked having the it's thin, but I liked having it here to work through.
Yeah, I like physical copies myself, especially if it has pamphlets or things like that in it. Sounds like you almost need it.
The the pamphlets you download from the site they give you inside the book.
Okay, good.
But
No,
no, I'm
no
doing a
magic for
lot of
me.
work. No magic yet. The
No
interesting
magic.
thing about it, this system actually talks about using it for sci-fi as well. I haven't seen the usefulness for that yet,
Oh,
but he's got a lot of examples in there. One of them is like Avengers. So re or reverse engineering the magic system from Avengers to from a
interesting.
reader perspective. Not sure I'd
Yeah,
ever do that.
I'll have to look at that. That sounds out there.
magic magic systems, I think, is worth a little research because a lot of the magic systems build off of things. So you like have the lowest level magic and next level and the level from that. And
Yeah.
you have to think of what is the cost of magic because if you don't want to just say that magic is free, you're either going to use like mana or blood or whatever else you use as your cost.
Uh-huh.
You might come in through clear. I'm getting a little feedback.
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Okay, it's my
Yeah.
phone. I totally believe that.
Oh no. Is it echoing to you? It's
It
hard to
does
be
it
the person hearing the echo.
every now and then on a live. I'll get echo. It's just
Okay.
weird.
Yeah, I'm not hearing it for you.
So, what got you started in sci-fi?
This one book, I had the idea back in the 90s and just started, I had the framework of it in a dream and woke up and wrote that down and then just kept adding to it and actually building characters out of it and just it seemed like a living thing. It took forever to get it to a point where I felt comfortable sharing it with anyone, and then years and years to publish. So,
Was it anyone in or any book or any author that really influenced you to even think about that, or was it just love for sci-fi in general got you there?
I love sci-fi. I've always loved sci-fi. Just the Brave New World, 1984, Handmaid's Tale, just all of that. I've always loved it since high school. Um, the idea of mind control is I had been in a readers group. We were discussing a book, and in it, the writer lied to us all and said, "Oh, in this book, I'm not going to describe blank." And it was a nonfiction. I'm not going to describe blank. And then they went on in 3 pages of describing in detail this event. And I was looking around the group like, okay, who's going to call the bullshit flag? And nobody did. They're like, oh, yeah. And one person even said, oh, they didn't really go into detail about it, but I thought such and such was just fascinating. What more detail could you possibly have wanted? Talk about Stephen King and in the weeds. Truly, there was not any stone uncovered. They described every single thing in detail, and I thought, man, so just by saying I'm not going to do something, does that mean they're all going to believe me? I wonder if I can do that. And so I think that's when I had the dream the next night. It's like, yeah, mind control, baby. That's the way to go. So
Nice.
I think that's where it started.
That's cool. You can pin it down to like that event that you just
One event.
influenced it.
It so
Yeah,
shocked me.
it would me too for someone to go just well, it would then, not so much anymore because we see that all the time. Um,
Good point. Yes.
um,
Yes.
but
I think that's
before we got inundated with people telling us non-truths every day, yeah, I would have totally been in the
yeah.
same situation. I don't know that I would have thought about writing a book from it though. That's
I
interesting.
don't I didn't mean to. I just it just hit me and I had to write it. I think more than anything. Because I still had my day job, so I would just write in the evenings when I could and get it all down. And I had this serious Excel spreadsheet for my plot. Had every character in it, every likes and dislikes, hair color, what high school they went to. I mean, I just knew way too much about these characters than anybody ever needs to know. But it helped me. By the time I finally figured it all out and put things together, oh, and back then I had index cards too. I had them all spread out, what order the chapters should go, because I've got several characters, so I needed to make sure that I kept consistent with them as they went along, and I knew for each one their basic plot until they all merged at the end. But yeah, it was just in me. I didn't mean to write it. It's not my fault.
I was actually I've had well I had chronic acute insomnia almost my whole life. Growing up as a
Sorry.
kid, really bad, like just didn't sleep at all. So
Oh no.
I spent a lot of time thinking about epic, grand stories. Because back when I was a kid, we only had a couple channels and there wasn't even TV all night long. So as I'm just sitting there, I'd read. I'd I wasn't encouraged to read, and I wasn't like given access to books. I was never even taken to the library as a child.
Oh wow.
Um, so when I got a hold of a book myself, I'd read, or I'd do comics that I had pretty easily. But I'd think about these grand stories. And then I'd talk to people about them, and every single person would just tell me, "Can't give up on that." I've
They tell
asked
you
people
don't
if they
give
thought
up on
maybe,
it.
no, give up on
Oh
it.
no.
Absolutely give up on it. My family told me that. My friends told me that. Um, Later, some coworkers told me that. I would hear the thing that writers don't make any money, that writers, horrible, they live horrible lives. You couldn't be a writer. You couldn't tell stories. All these things were what I was told over and over. I was greatly influenced as I got older in my 20s and I started finding magical used bookstores. I really got into with Wyatt. I have a whole shelf of the stuff I can't even think of his name. But the Foundation series and other things from Isaac Asimov.
Hmm.
And that influenced me to think really big. And over time, I just had that epic stories building and building. I've got a backlog of them in my head. And it wasn't until I met an author who has a great big following, he's a sci-fi author on Facebook. I started reading some of his stuff, but he would engage with readers on Facebook. And it wasn't until I started seeing him engaging with other aspiring authors that I actually thought, well, maybe I could. I have an idea better than that. I have all this stuff in my head. And so I spent a couple hours one day talking to him. And he was like, it sounds like you have a great idea. Just do it.
Huh.
And he said, it's
How
going to be hard.
validating.
It's going to be hard. It's going to be crazy. And it's probably going to suck. But do it. And the biggest thing I could tell you, don't let anyone say don't publish. Publish. Because the
Oh,
day you publish, the world changes. You are an author, even if you don't sell a book. And
that's
that
true.
really made me think. And it's within days, I started writing. Within 30 days, I had my first draft. Within 60 days, I published it.
Wow.
Um,
Hey, you've
but
gone
now I,
still.
hmm?
Your video is not moving. Your video isn't moving.
Not at all.
Or you just no, you just got a still for me.
Uh, Let me see if I can do anything about that.
Okay. How validating for someone to finally recognize that you have a story in there and oh, maybe it's just mine. Looks like you're moving on to somebody else.
Okay. Am I still moving,
You're still
Bella?
not to me, but
Okay. Well, I could go with voice if no one sees me too. So,
no, it looks like you are still moving to other people. Just that's weird that it's just to me. Huh.
um, no, it was great. If not for that conversation, I don't think I would have written anything.
That's amazing. So it just shows the
But
power of being nice to somebody and all the people who are trying to keep you from publishing or from getting your story out. It's
yeah,
just,
it's weird, and it's also weird seeing my family. I moved across the country just before the pandemic, and my family's back in Washington State where I was born and raised. My family doesn't support me at all, but they want to brag that I'm also an author. So they've
no
asked me
way.
to
They
do
can't have it
things.
both ways.
I agree. They've asked me to do things like sign 20 books and send to them. Um, and then they could just give them out to their friends and say how wonderful I am. And I'm like, well, that's just strange. Um,
Yeah,
so I haven't done that. Uh, and a couple people are annoyed I haven't done that.
that's so hard because in one sense they are proud. They clearly are proud of you. Why don't they just
Not,
say that and then you'd be happy to give them one? But just
yeah, I'd be happy to give them one, and I even sign one and ship it, but not 20.
yeah.
I'm not
Hmm.
sure I understand the comment, your left sock.
Yeah, I don't understand that either.
I'm trying, but I can't make sense of it.
Uh,
Well, we'll see if they respond with clarification.
huh.
No, I'm really happy now with the. I'm getting a group of authors that are much more supportive than family ever was, and it's nice here because I have some chosen family that is really supportive.
That's helpful.
But real family is kind of a miss on that one.
Yeah, it's tough. Some family can disappoint you. You and I had some where I expected them to be a little more happy for me and to read my book and just lie, tell me they liked it even if it's not their genre. And yeah, they weren't very good at lying. They just told me, I'm not going to read it. So that's these were big readers too, so it was a little hurtful, but in the big scheme of things, it was fine. We just get over it. We find our good family, our friends, and the ones who really
With
support us.
one of my wife's best friends from childhood, she grew up in this area. The reason we moved out here even is because she wanted to move back to Indiana. But her best friend lives out here, and we're really close with them. She has the best parents of any person I've ever met. But her
Aw.
parents support me. They're in their late 70s, and they bought my book and they read it. Neither of them were into sci-fi at all, and it might have went a little. I'm not spicy by any even remote means of the earth of what I write, but I do have some adult content in my book, and that's not really what the type of thing that they've ever read.
Yeah.
And even with that, they enjoyed it so much. or at least they said they enjoyed it so much that they're been pounding me for the next release of my next book. They'll be the first ones to buy copies.
Aw,
So I've got kind of the surrogate parents for that one, but
that's wonderful. Yeah. Uh, we just take the friends and the supporters we can get. And
yep, we do. We are hitting at the 7:45 time. I'm not in a hurry to get off here, but I want to respect your time if you have something else scheduled.
let me see. How busy are we, buddy? He's not supposed to be on the table, so. Yeah, I guess we have
So
another couple minutes.
let me ask, are you nervous still?
Yes. Yes.
All right. Well, I'm not too
I only
intimidating,
had
I hope.
one drink. But that was like
This is
2:00.
this is pretty easy to do. You just have to get past it. It's just like publishing. You just have to do it.
Yeah, it's gotten easier.
Would you
Thank
be,
you. You've been delightful.
would you be interested in doing it again?
I would. I would.
Would you be interested in doing it if we had more than two of us?
Sure.
Okay. I have a
Yeah.
couple of people that I've done these with before, and I'm keeping a list of people. And what I'd like to do is, after I've done a first one-on-one with someone, start doing some of these 3 or 4 groups to get more conversation going.
That would be great. Yeah, and just learn more. I like it that we have the same genre too, because it just helps. I don't have that many friends on TikTok that are into sci-fi. A lot of author
Oh,
friends and some other people, but yeah, the sci-fi I'm just now starting to realize, wow, and I don't have that many. So it's fun to meet you, and I'd love to meet more.
no, that's the one thing I really want to do with this is to build out our networks and
Yes.
not just our networks of other authors, but hopefully this was kind of a low number of viewers for me, but hopefully we could get sharing some of our audience as well. Since we're
Yeah,
in the same type of genres, we should get some crossover on what people like.
absolutely. I can't
And
see how many people we've had.
we've had between 3 and 7. We've
Okay.
constantly stayed at 3, but we've had 7. I typically have about 12 people in things like this, so this is a lower number, but some days are like that.
Okay.
Are
Well,
you
hi,
open to
3
doing?
people.
Are you open to doing this on Sundays?
Yes.
All right. Well, you've
Yeah,
just hit
any
every
day
single
except for,
criteria.
sorry?
You hit every single criteria there, so we'll definitely schedule
Okay.
something in the near future with. I might bring in an author or two from the UK, and we
Oh,
could
nice.
chat with them.
Yeah, my time is flexible too. It doesn't have to be at this time Eastern. Any pretty much any day, roughly any time.
I typically do Sundays mid-afternoon because that kind of lines up with some time that people can be available in the UK. It's not too late.
Yeah.
And any earlier than mid-afternoon, you really don't get a group of people to watch. So it worked out.
And I didn't do very much marketing because I was so nervous. I didn't know if I've done some lives before, but they were all just spur of the moment. And I was outside, I was showing things like eagles and things, and so I couldn't even see the screen, so I couldn't read what people were saying, so I pretty much ignored it. That was easy. So I was nervous about this and answering questions. So, hey, you guys are nice to me. I didn't have any questions. So I think I'll be way more gung ho next time and to get the word out too. So that'll hopefully help.
Yeah, I was hoping to do a little more marketing, but I was otherwise engaged over the weekend too much. Vella is probably one of my best readers on TikTok. She has done probably the most enthusiastic video review of my book of anyone
Oh,
that I've seen,
nice.
which is amazing.
Nice.
Also, one of
That
my
is
beta
so
readers.
special. That,
You know,
that
it's amazing. I thought it was amazing the first time. So Vella was the first. But then even the second, the third, and the fourth time, when someone you didn't ask to read your book does a video review of your book, that is just, it touches me. I love that.
I don't know if Vella, I see you, I guess you're still here. If you realize that, but how much that means to authors, it truly, I can just imagine, Mike, how much that meant to you because it's the best feeling in the world. I think sometimes I can't speak for all the authors, but I know sometimes even if I never sold another book, as long as I heard somebody read it and liked it and told me about it, and we're not supposed to look at reviews, but I can't help it because I want to see if people like it. And yeah, the
I,
people that have made videos, it's really, really special. I mean, how often do people do that in the world in general? Just say something nice out of the goodness of their heart. It's really special.
Especially for indie authors that aren't the well-known public household names, to get that type of the exposure is amazing, but just to get that type of commentary from a random person is just
Yeah,
amazing. And that's part of what I
yeah,
really like about TikTok, because you could see that you get that feedback. It's nice
yeah,
to read in a review too. It is, but it's different when someone holds up your book and says, I got book mail. I love it. It's crazy cool.
and to see one when you're not even expecting it, like you're saying, just to flip through and then see yourself or see your book, like, wait a minute, did I just see that? That's amazing. It's really special. And yeah, when I read a review, I don't have that many reviews. It's indie author, not that many. But when I read one, I'm thrilled, absolutely thrilled. But you're right. When I see a TikTok about it, oh my gosh, it's just big old smile. You just can't help it. So we got to
So
do more of it.
I am getting some kids bothering me at the door. So I'm going to have to call this a night. But it was
Okay,
definitely nice to get to know you. It was nice to get to talk to you. And
absolutely. Nice knowing you.
I'll contact you probably in the next week or so, and we'll arrange another one.
Perfect. I'd like it. Looking forward to it. This time I
All right.
am. I won't be terrified again next time.
And I'll have more females on with us so that I'll be the only male and you won't have to be worried about it.
I'm not worried about that part. That's good. You're very kind. Thank
Actually,
you.
actually, so far I've only interviewed one other male. I've interviewed like 10 women. So it just tends to be the people that say yes.
It's awesome.
Um, great to talk to you. Thank you for hanging in there, Vella, and whoever else is still around.
Hey, Bella.
Thank you. And then we'll see you
Thank
guys
you.
later. Have a wonderful night.
Awesome. Thanks, you too. Bye, everybody.